Welcome to this week's meeting of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. The focus of our club is in regards to innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. We use technology as a tool in order to further the goals of Rotary International, which is service above self and making the world a better place to live. This week's meeting, we have a very special guest, Peter Walters, who is going to speak on the theme, Let the Children Live. And at this point in time, I would like to turn the meeting and presentation over to Peter for his presentation.
Well, hello and thank you. Greetings from Medellin, Colombia to my fellow Rotarians. As you can tell from my funny accent, I'm not from Colombia originally, but my home Rotary Club is in Stratford-on-Avon in England. So on behalf of my club there, greetings to all of you. And it's my pleasure today to talk to you a little bit about my work here in Colombia in South America with a charity called Let the Children Live. And I'm going to click the button and see if this thing works. Not at the moment, it hasn't. Let's try again. Well, it did last time, but it's not working now. I think we've got a technical hitch here. No, my screen has frozen. I'm afraid this is not good.
No, your screen hasn't frozen.
Hooray. There we are. It's working now. Okay. Thank you very much. Hooray, that's jolly good. Well, just to let you know where Colombia is, top left-hand corner of South America, and I'm in a city called Medellin, Colombia's second largest city, which you can see on the map there. It's a city with about 4 million people in the greater metropolitan area. The rich people live where the ground is flat, and the poor people live on the sides of the mountain in little huts like this. This is part of my parish. I'm a Roman Catholic priest.
Peter, you haven't shared your screen yet.
Oh, well, I'm talking to myself then.
No, you're talking to everybody.
Sorry about this. Now, let's try again. I'll share. There we go. Well, you should have seen Medellin, and there is part of my parish, and this is the center of my charity in Medellin, a place called Casa Walsingham. And from there, traditionally, we went out looking for children who were living or working in the streets. I've been doing this for a long time, so you can see I had a lot more hair in those days and less tummy. And we used to find lots of children sleeping on the pavement, the sidewalk. But now most of them have disappeared because the authorities have decreed that there shall not be street children. And so if they catch them, they round them up and take them to a secure place where they are safe, they are looked after and well fed, but they're locked up. And so many children don't want to be locked up. So if they end up in the streets, they hide in the brothels and the drug dens, which is not really a great advance. Other children don't live in the street, but they work there, perhaps cleaning the windshields of cars or selling things to motorists, juggling, or using any other skill they may have. But life in the street is dangerous. And there are some 400 armed gangs here. And last year, 4 of my kids were killed. It's very easy for them to get caught up in drugs and violence and delinquency. And the gangs are always trying to recruit new members. I called the charity Let the Children Live because in the 26 years that I've been living here, I long ago lost count of the number of youngsters whom I have known who have unfortunately been killed. Other youngsters we're finding in the streets at the moment are refugees from Venezuela. Venezuela is next door to us, and most of the roads, as you can see from the map, run east-west and lead to Colombia. This is one of the main international bridges. 50,000 people come into Colombia from Venezuela every day, but only 45,000 go back. So 5,000 a day, 35,000 a week, 150,000 a month stay. And the authorities reckon that by the end of 2020, there will be getting on for 3 million refugees from Venezuela in Colombia. So it is an enormous problem. And in Medellin, where I live, we've got about 100,000 at the moment, and the signs are, the authorities say that it may well reach 200,000 by the end of the year. Some of them, if they've got papers, come over the bridge. Others who don't have papers have to cross the river. And then they walk. And all they have is what they can carry. Now, to reach Medellin, from Caracas to the border is 526 miles, and then on to Medellin is another 360 miles. So some of the kids I'm dealing with have walked the better part of 800 miles. And then you see them and their families, as I say, on nearly every street corner. Malnutrition is a very big problem with them. These aren't economic migrants, they are people who are refugees fleeing really from hunger and from violence and the collapse of the Venezuelan economy. So some of them scavenge. Our job at Let the Children Live is to reach out to these sorts of children and other children on the margins of society. These are some of our Venezuelan children. We've got lots of 5- and 6-year-olds. And obviously a very important part of our work is feeding them. And we are feeding about 150 Venezuelan children every day, as well as working with some 300, 350 Colombian children. So we've got our hands full. And when our center is closed, we give the children vouchers so that they can get a meal in a local cafe. And the vouchers are personalized, so it's only valid for that child on that particular day. So we know which children are receiving food, and the food can't be sold or given to anybody else. We're also involved in providing basic health care like vaccinations, particularly for the refugees. Of course, they're not entitled to any free health care. And so if they have an accident like that little girl, we have to pay to have the treatment for them. But the most important part of the work that we do with all of the children is education. We see education as being the way out of the street and to the best way for the children to have a hope of a better future. So we provide an introduction to education for children who haven't been to school in our own center, and we try to get the children school places. In Colombia, a lot of schools operate on a shift system, and some children go to school in the afternoon and others in the morning. So children who go to school in the afternoon come to us in the morning, have breakfast, do their homework, have access to the internet, have access to social workers or psychologists or doctors if they need them, then have lunch and then go to school. And then the children who went to school in the morning arrive, and we do the same thing with them in the afternoon. Now, the school year in Colombia begins in the middle of January. And although the school places in the government-run schools are free, nonetheless, the parents have to pay for every exercise book and pencil and paper that the child may need. And so for some of the parents, that is a very big cost. To give you some idea, a basic primary school pack for a one semester would be about $20 US. And the uniform that the child might need would range between $75 and $90. So for a poor family, that's an enormous burden to bear. So we try to help with those as well. We're also working with children with special educational needs. who find it very difficult to cope with the ordinary school system. And there is a great lack of specialist teachers in the ordinary schools to cope with these special needs. And we have some of our youngsters whose scholarship age, school age, doesn't tally with their chronological age. They're far too old for where they are really in their education. And so they wouldn't be able to go to, for example, a primary school if they're already 14 or 15. So we have been able to reach an agreement with the authorities whereby we're able to provide special accelerated courses for teenagers, so they've got some chance of being actually able to finish high school. And there are some of our youngsters who graduated from high school last year. We've also had youngsters who've gone on to make a professional career. This girl you can see in that photograph is now an industrial engineer. And this lad, whose family recycle rubbish, we met years ago when he was working in the streets to sell plastic bags outside a supermarket to pay for his school books. And we helped him go through school. He did very well. He got a government grant to go to university to do nursing. After a year of nursing, he was allowed to change to medicine, and he graduated as a doctor about 4 years ago. So you can imagine that's an enormous change in that young man's life. His determination, his ability, but a little bit of help from Let the Children Live at the right time. And also during his university career, we were paying for his living costs, which his government grant didn't cover. Well, that made all the difference. But life for the kids has got to be fun as well. So we have plenty of that, or they won't come to us. They only come because they want to. So we have lots of fun and games. And sport. We helped to set up a soccer league amongst different organizations that work with children. And that is a great draw. The league functions for about 5 months, and the children join different teams. They can only join if they come regularly. So we have teams for boys and for girls, and that involves about 1,000 children every year. Another program we have is for young mums. Some of our mums are really young. This girl gave birth to her baby just after her 12th birthday. And it's very important to keep these girls in school. And so we make it possible for the girls to look after their babies and go to school. Because if they don't go to school, they'll be reliant on some useless man for the rest of their life who may well abandon or mistreat them. Whereas if they do go to school, they can get qualifications and perhaps build a future for themselves and their babies. We also work with the parents of our youngsters, trying to help them with their parenting difficulties, teaching them that there are better ways to deal with difficult children rather than just hitting them, and also helping with things like budgeting so that they can make the best use of their limited resources. Music is very important for us. So we started a choir some years ago called Cor Videns, which means the Seeing Heart Choir. And the job of the choir is to be the voice of our other children. And we hope that one day their voice will be heard around the world. We audition about 1,000 children a year, and our children learn to sing in Spanish and Latin and English. And they do classical things and folk music, and also they sing in our chapel. Now, Let the Children Live is working with children who always seem to be at the end of the line. They're the last ones to get anything good that's going in their society. So we try to bring them to the front of the line, to provide them with the help that they need to build a better future and to avoid getting caught up in drugs and crime and prostitution. And we are a tiny organization, and we very much need help at the international level. So if there's anything that any of the members of your club could do to help us, the message that my children would have for them would be GRACIAS. Gracias. Thank you very much. And there are the details about us. We're a 5013C corporation domiciled in California, in Orinda. We don't have an office. We don't have any employees in the States. We're as tiny as we can possibly be. And we have another charity in England that raises most of our money at the moment. But Let the Children Live in the US is just getting off the ground. So we would be most grateful for anything you can do to help us. Thank you for your patience. And I will now stop my sharing. Is that back to normal? Hooray. Do any of you have any questions you'd like to ask me about the work of Let the Children Live?
Thank you very much, Peter, for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I'll ask, and first of all, for Rory, if he has any questions of you, and then I will go ahead and I'll ask any questions that I have.
Very good.
Yeah. As Roger, I think, knows, the way I met Father Peter was he gave the homily at our church back before Christmas, or at least before the first of the year. And I was fascinated because part of what our club deals with is people who educate in very difficult circumstances. And when you mentioned all of the problems you had with your students, I was really curious. I mean, I also wrote you a check, so it's, you know, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, but I was just fascinated from a standpoint of being an educator, which I have taught in the past. It's very difficult. I really appreciate you putting it on the program because it sort of fleshes out the difficulties that you and your people have in trying to educate these children. So I just want to thank you for your presentation.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Rory. I mean, education is really right at the center of what we are trying to do. And obviously, some of our children are by no means academic. Some of them are very able, others less so. But we try to attract teaching staff who want to work with challenging students because all the participation of our children is entirely voluntary. If they don't like it, if they don't enjoy it, they just give up. And so from our point of view, every person who works for us is an educator, whether they're formerly a teacher or whether they work in the kitchen or in the office, because the children may forge a bond with them that can make all the difference. Gone completely. Ah, he's back.
There he is. Roger?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Hooray. We'd lost you.
Yes.
Now he's found.
One question I have for you, Peter, is how big is your staff within the organization?
In Colombia, we have about 25 paid staff, but that's teachers, psychologists, social workers, cooks, cleaners, office staff, and all the rest of it. But we also have each year a varying number of student practitioners from local universities, student teachers, student psychologists, student social workers. Now, because we're at the beginning of this year, I don't know how many we're going to have this year because we haven't yet heard from the universities. Last year, we had about 15 altogether. So that is an enormous help because they're sort of semi-trained, but they don't cost us anything. And they like it because they get good experience, and we like it because it enables us to look after more children.
Right. Like you put on a huge food program.
It's challenging. It's a very big problem with us with the Venezuelans because they really come from nowhere. and we haven't got a budget for feeding them. But as you get hungry children turning up on our doorstep, how can we turn them away? And so suddenly we found ourselves having to invent a way of reaching out to these children who are so malnourished.
Right. How many people would you have just involved in the food program?
In the cooking staff, because we have two buildings, I only showed you one of them, which is Casa Walsingham, which is our day centre, but we also have a building which the choir use and which other children use during the vacations. Like today, I've got the house full of Venezuelan children. They're coming in groups before they start going back to school. So the kitchen staff between the two houses, I think, are 5 altogether.
Okay. The your source of funding is through fundraising solely.
Yes, we don't get any grants from the government. I don't really want government money because here it always comes with strings attached.
Universal.
And I think that the Rotary way of raising funds is a much better way, and we rely very much on the talks that I give in parishes. Last weekend, for example, I was in a parish just outside Los Angeles in Camarillo, in California, and the people there were very generous. But unfortunately, I have very few such contacts in the United States. I have a few in Houston, which was how I was able to do the talks there. But I'm very interested in finding other places where I can talk and where we can try to look for funds. Because at the moment, nearly all of our money comes from the UK. 90% plus of our income comes from the UK.
At this point in time, I'm going to say to the people who are watching this video that to please leave a comment at the bottom. And I've already talked to Peter, and he will come back and comment on your comments and answer any questions that you may have. If you are a visitor or a member of this club, please do not forget to fill in the attendance report. And as a guest, if you put in your correct email address, then what will happen is our club will send to you a receipt of attendance, which you can then take to your club secretary so that it'll be used as a makeup. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer the program back to Peter for his last word. Take it away, Peter.
Well, thank you very much, Roger. It's been a pleasure to be with you. And I'm most intrigued by the workings of your club. I think it's a wonderful idea, this virtual club. And I wish you every success. And I hope that you may be interested in helping us to make some more contacts to help our children here in the Columbia, and that in that way, letting the children live. Thank you all very much indeed.
You're most welcome, Peter.
Roger, can I ask a question? When we're done with the program,